Once you are listed, it enhances your credibility. Our portfolio is very diverse. The best of ideas and the execution come from engaged employees. Your culture is your asset. Initially, everyone struggles. You struggle to find your feet. You feel like, oh, this is something that I never expected. They have a culture that supports growth and there is a leadership behind this talent. They succeed because they have great talent. HR plays a very, very critical role in this entire process of transformation because communication has been very, very critical. So these are people who already believe in us.
The People Puzzle is brought to you by Bridgeview Search Partners, an executive search firm specializing in mid to senior level hiring. With your host, Reet Rathore from the HR practice at Bridgeview, let's solve today's People Puzzle together. Hey everybody, welcome to the People Puzzle. In today's episode, we're very excited to welcome Lata Iyer, the Chief Human Resources Officer at Zaggle. Lata has 18 plus years of experience in HR leadership across various industries, leading people strategy at companies like Reliance, Nielsen, Epigamia, Herbalife, and the like. She's built high performance cultures in fast growing environments, led strategic hiring initiatives, and played a very key role in shaping organizational transformations. Currently at Zaggle, she has been instrumental in driving the company's transition to a publicly listed entity, overseeing everything from talent strategy to governance in a very competitive fintech space. So today we're tackling a very exciting but very complex topic, which is basically the challenges that come with going public and what happens after the IPO happens. An IPO is obviously a big milestone for any company, as we all know. It brings new growth, it brings credibility, market visibility, but of course for the HR leaders, it's just the beginning of a whole new set of challenges. Because of course there's shifts in cultures, there's new governance pressures, there's heightened employee expectations, and obviously the constant demand to sustain engagement and performance in a publicly listed sort of environment. So how do you lead an organization through this transformation without losing its essence is exactly what we're diving into today with Lata. So hey Lata, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you on board today. How are you doing?
First of all, thank you so much, Reet, for having me on the show. Very, very excited. This is one of the very few podcasts that I've done. In fact, this is the second podcast I'm doing, so a little nervous, but thank you so much for having me.
We're very, very excited to have you on board as well. And honestly, you've had such a dynamic career in HR across multiple industries. You had to be one of our guests. So before we get into Zaggle's, IPO and post-listing transformation, which is our topic for today, I'd love to actually go back to, where it all began. So I wanted to understand what actually drew you to choose HR, in the first place as your field.
Okay, I'll be very honest. I did not plan my career per se. Back in the day, there was nobody to really guide on which career path to choose and where to go. This is like luck by chance. I hate to say that, but yes, that is the truth. When I started off my career, honestly, I thought HR is a very powerful function because it can shape people's careers. We do the interviews, so we can hire people. We're supposed to hire people. We're supposed to train them. We're supposed to retain them. We have the power and the responsibility of addressing their grievances and action on feedback. Right, such a powerful thing in an organization, and that's what was the exciting bit about HR, and that's why I chose HR, and that's all I knew about HR, honestly. But over the years, I've realized that HR is obviously all of this and so much more. Right? It's quite fascinating to see how people actually shape business. So it's HR is right in the intersection of business strategy and people. Right? Companies really succeed only because they have great products or they have great business models or financial models or because they have a great strategy. They succeed because they have great talent. They have a culture that supports their growth, and there is a leadership behind this talent. And that is something that I've learned over the years. And HR as a career path has given me this opportunity to shape these elements, right? Whether it's about building high performing teams, driving cultural change, helping organizations to transitions, aligning people strategy to business objectives, ensuring that every single person feels valued and knows how they're contributing to the larger goal, right? And that is what has been my pursuit. And so I've worked with different industries, and every company that I work with has had its unique set of challenges. So but the core remains that people drive success.
Yeah. Very rightly said. Yeah, I think I completely, agree with you. I think companies can build so many products and so many businesses and use so many sales tactics, but if they don't have the right people sort of driving all that growth, then it's not really growth. It actually is a very unique space. It blends strategy, people, business impact, everything at once. And I'm really happy, to see you not decide on taking that part, but still actually, growing into it and still like reaching where you are today. So yeah, coming to when a company is sort of preparing for an IPO, I imagine the HR function becomes like even more crucial, right? So IPOs are obviously seen as financial milestones, but there's so much more that probably goes into preparing for one. So from an HR perspective, what does the lead up to an IPO really look like? What did it look like for you? And what do you think were the biggest challenges that any leaders who are preparing for an IPO should be prepared for?
Okay, so IPO journey is truly transformational. And Zaggle, we have been an outlier in every sense. We'll come to that later, but we have been a bootstrapped company in in fintech space, yet profitable for the last couple of years. Okay, and
Yeah.
and transitioning from a bootstrapped entrepreneurial or founder-led business to a publicly listed company, getting listed through an IPO process, and that too in record time. We got listed.
Yeah.
I joined the organization when the organization had just kickstarted the process of getting. We just put the roadmap in place, and
Yeah.
this was in 22. And we got listed in 23 September. I joined in August 22, and we filed
Yeah.
for our DRHP in December, March. We got the RHP done, and then the road shows began, and we got listed in September. So it's and I've seen and heard about how tough the IPO process has been for a lot of organizations that's tried to go public.
Yeah.
But yeah, things just fell in place, and I think it was the drive and passion that the leadership team had to go public that helped us in a big way.
Yeah.
You were
course,
asking
of course.
about the HR's role in ensuring that so HR plays a very, very critical role in this entire process of transformation, because you got to be structurally ready, you got to be culturally ready, you got to be operationally ready, right? These are some of the aspects that we have control of, and we work towards, right? So one is ensuring that there is leadership readiness, while the founder,
Yeah.
the CEO, and maybe the CFO, and maybe 2 3 or more people might be aligned to that vision, but ensuring that the rest of the leadership team is also aligned to the same vision. They understand the expectations, the responsibilities of pre and post IPO. And that's very
Yeah,
important,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Second is
Of course.
the talent and org structure.
Hmm.
How do you help the team scale to meet the demands of a public company? And you have to prepare in advance. You can't be doing it post getting listed. You have to start working towards it at least 1 year in advance, and that's exactly what we did. We were
Exactly.
preparing for the demands of a public company. We started hiring for critical roles, governance heavy roles like compliance, like investor relations,
Yeah.
communication, right? So HR plays a very critical role in the alignment of talent and organization structure,
Yeah.
in ensuring that the leadership team is ready.
Yeah.
From a culture and change management standpoint, also we have to keep the startup agility alive, but also embrace the rigor of getting listed. Right, when you are getting
Yeah,
listed, there is a
exactly.
lot of rigor, there's a lot of governance, there's a lot of compliance related activities that you're supposed to
Yeah.
manage, but at the
Yeah.
same time you don't want to you want to keep the startup agility alive.
Exactly. That's actually very interesting. I mean, because of course, I think the lead up to an IPO and then to actually go through with it, it takes everything, from a leadership perspective, from the employee's perspective as well. And I'm sure you've had a very, very interesting journey in actually achieving that feat, which brings me to you mentioned that the startup mentality to sort of a public mindset.
That
It's a very,
mindset, managing that mindset shift
yeah.
is the biggest challenge, from being an entrepreneurial, founder-led private company, culture to a governance-driven,
Yeah.
shareholder accountable mindset, and you do all of that without losing the essence of, a startup culture, without losing
Hmm.
ability, and that is the biggest challenge, and
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to actually also understand. So how did this shift from a startup sort of a mentality to a public company mindset affect, say the decision making process within the organization when it comes to hiring, when it comes to business in general? I think there would be a huge shift, right? So how do you think it affected the leadership?
I think it's communication that has helped us,
Yeah.
constantly communicating to to employees and helping them understand what is this entire process, what IPO means to them,
Yeah.
having stock options in place,
Mm.
employees on the ESOPs plan, and also getting into the rigor of quarterly reporting. Okay.
Exactly.
Earlier,
Yeah.
we would be probably generating reports in a very ad hoc manner, need basis. But once
Yeah.
it's listed, then you don't have a choice but to prepare for your quarterly reporting, right? And you get into that
Yeah.
rigor much in advance. So we started, putting dashboards and reporting numbers and putting all the data together even
Yeah.
before, far before we got listed. We started doing it 1 year in advance, so and also, it's important to help employees understand why is this important and set
Hmm.
expectations. Okay, this is what is expected from a listed company, and therefore, and if
Yeah.
you are a part of the listed company, you're going to be a part of a listed company, and this is the kind of rigor that we have to get into. So that is, I think, one of the
Exactly.
things that's critical.
Yeah. So there actually comes a mindset shift in every employee of the team and the way that they work and the way that they function in their day-to-day lives in the company as well.
Yes.
Yeah, which makes sense. I wanted to actually also ask you, since we are talking about this, how were you, how did you take up sort of preparing, your workforce or your employees for this sort of a transition during your IPO journey?
So, like I said, communication has been very, very critical.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you got to let your employees know what is the true impact of an IPO. Okay, while the
Yeah.
leadership, team is preparing for the IPO, they focused on road shows, on onboarding potential investors. They focused on getting the financials in place and compliances. Employees start wondering what's in it for me. Okay, so you got to
Exactly.
influence
Of
the team.
course.
So what we did is we covered a lot of employees under the ESOP scheme,
Hmm.
and we have to proactively educate them on the ESOP liquidity plan, how it will work, how the stock markets work, and what is the responsibility of being in a listed company. I think we started doing a lot of that well in advance, and that is what
Hmm.
helped us prepare the entire organization for this transition. We had to
Got it.
we had to ensure there is a balance in the narrative. Okay, while we celebrate
Yeah.
wins, you celebrate wins, but you also reinforce that this has to be sustained. Okay, any decision that you take has to help the organization in sustaining and delivering long term value, and that is very important for you to realize, and also the organization, the employees to align with.
Exactly, yeah. I can understand. And that's, I think, in order to actually transition your employees to that mindset and actually, understand what they are feeling and how they are processing it is also very important. And that is a very important feat to achieve as well. I think it's very fascinating how the people dimension can sort of truly define the success of an IPO. And I imagine that even in a very successful IPO transition, the shift from private to public brings a very fundamental sort of culture shift, right? So once an IPO is done and the company isn't the same anymore, it's now operating under public market scrutiny with new investor expectations and a different dynamic in the company altogether. So internally, how do you think that shift, sort of impacts employees? What do you think are some of the biggest cultural challenges that arise once a company goes public, according to you?
One is there's a lot of focus on the stock price. Your employees start
Yeah.
tracking it on a daily basis, which can lead to distractions. Okay, so our founder keeps telling, uh, whenever we do town halls, whenever in the last town hall also he mentioned that if you keep measuring your heart rate, you'll only see it going up.
Yeah.
So stop
Exactly.
sampling this, and a lot of it is not in our control. We got to do what we got to do. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's one of the things, especially the ones who are holding stocks. There is going to
Hmm.
be naturally focus on the stock price. That's one. The other
Yeah.
one is, once you go public, you're going to be a lot more process driven than how you were before. Right?
Of course.
As a startup,
Yeah.
things work very differently. So once you're a publicly listed company, then you become a little process heavy culture. So more governance, more
Hmm.
reporting,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it may feel a little bureaucratic. Employee will feel, "Arey, how many reports do we generate, right? You have
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
tracking performance. You have to ensure that you're going to meet your quarterly numbers. You know So that's the next challenge, right? There's a lot of pressure on delivering quarterly results, right? So this,
Yeah.
this shift can probably, it's a natural gradual process, okay? And this can actually shift your focus from long-term innovation or decisions that will impact your business in the long run to looking at it
Yeah.
on a quarter to quarter basis. So you look at short-term gains. You have to
Exactly.
consciously go.
Yeah, I mean, I can
And
understand.
it's important that as leaders we step back and see where are we headed, and what was our long-term vision, and how is all of this aligning to that. It's important that you
Yeah.
consciously make that shift. Step back and look at long-term innovation and not get bogged down by quarterly results and the pressure around that. So that is one of the challenges that typically face.
Yeah.
It's important to balance. It's important to balance compliance. It's important to balance uh, agility. You have to ensure
Yeah.
that you continue to operate like a startup. You continue to attract the right set of people, but at the same time, governance, is in place, but doesn't stifle you. Right? It doesn't stifle speed.
Yeah.
It doesn't stifle innovation, and you have your eyes on the big reward, the long term vision. You have to
Exactly.
constantly
Yeah.
be at it. It's a continuous process. It's a constant. It's a journey.
Exactly. I think rightly said, it's a very important perspective. And it's also very inspiring to see the fact that, despite the fact that you had an IPO, it's doing so well and priorities are obviously meant to switch. But you guys have sort of been able to retain that people first sort of a mindset as well, where you know that, your priorities, even though they are slightly different now, should also like some things like are going to be important all the time at the end of the day, no matter where the company goes. So yeah, that makes sense. Speaking of, sort of perception, would you say that being a publicly listed company makes Zaggle, a more attractive employer? If yes, then how? How has it helped your talent acquisition or, the kind of talent that you're attracting towards the company, the IPO?
Absolutely, yes. It's a resounding yes. So see, there's one thing that we've been able to retain is our way we operate. We still operate like a startup, although we have put a lot of governance in place, compliances in place. We understand our responsibilities as a listed company. There's a lot of financial transparency and all of that. But at the same time, we have not let the spirit of a startup or spirit of speed, die. Okay, and a candidate can
Yeah.
see that. Candidates can see that in every interaction they're having with us. The speed at which we are able to close things, the speed at which we move, it makes a difference. And they, feel. In fact, we have got a lot of appreciation from some of very senior candidates that we've spoken to. They appreciate the
Yeah.
speed with which we are able to move forward.
Hmm.
And that comes with a lot of clarity. Speed is a result of clarity, right? And we know where
Yeah.
where we are, where we are headed. So that's really helped us, attract the right set of people because once you are listed, it enhances your credibility. Your
Exactly.
credentials are transparent. You no longer have to go through the pain of explaining to people and earning their trust. It's all out there.
Exactly.
A listed
And at this
company.
point of time, candidates are very concerned about stability. Like if the company is well funded, will they be stable? So I think that in general just goes away once you're public.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
in fact, we have come across so many candidates who have invested in us. From the outside.
Wow.
In the public
That's
sector.
actually a very interesting thing to speak about in an interview as well, right? Just asking the candidate, letting you know that, oh, I'm an investor. Yeah.
In fact,
Actually.
this morning I, interviewed a candidate, and he has been following us right from the IPO days, and he's invested in us. And I said, I hope you've kept the stocks. He said, of course, I know that it's going to give me 10x returns in the next couple of years, right? So these are people who already believe in us. So you already won with candidates, and they are also they already have skin in the game. They want us to do well because they will also, obviously stand to gain. So it's a very interesting question that you asked. It makes us very attractive. You have proven track record of growth and governance. You demonstrate stability. You are transparent. Your numbers are all out there, and you can be a lot more structured in your career progression, in your benefits. You also have a clear liquid stock based wealth creation opportunity for your employees, right? So all of these things definitely make us a very attractive employer.
Definitely. I'm very happy to hear that actually. Do you think in any way or any capacity, being public makes the talent acquisition or attracting talent less attractive as well? In any way or any capacity, do you think? Or has it only helped your
Yes, it only
talent
helped
acquisition
us.
strategy?
It's only helped us. There are some, candidates that I know of who prefer, a lot more fast-paced and high-risk environment because the nature of high reward of startups not listed. Okay, and for them, we may not be attractive, but
Yeah.
I think it's a very attractive proposition for a lot of employees because we still have the startup bug in us. It's been what 14, 15 years of existence, and we've just got
Yeah.
it. It's a very exciting space to be in. I don't think we are less
Yeah.
attractive.
Definitely. I definitely also think that it's only up from here. Touch wood. Okay. So taking a step back, to sort of looking at hiring strategy, do you think HR teams in general also need to take a different approach to talent acquisition and workforce management post IPO as compared to pre IPO?
Yeah, I mean, we have to. So luckily, I joined at the time when we had already started the process. So I have not seen a lot of pre-IPO phase, but of course, my boss, our CEO, has seen. When we were 40-member team, when we were 30-member team, and from there we have grown, right? So I'm sure some other people might be able to explain how different we
Yeah.
are in terms of our hiring. But I have
Yeah.
seen very fast-paced growth. We have doubled our headcount from the time I've come on board.
Yeah.
So that
Exactly.
and I would say that we have become a lot more structured in our hiring. So when I joined, and in the last 2.5, 3 years, I'm going to complete 3 years this year. I've seen, we are a lot more structured in our planning. Our annual operating
Yeah.
plans are frozen in the beginning of the year. We know what are the kind of roles that we're going to hire for. We are focused on governance heavy roles. We want to ensure that we have a solid, M&A chief. We have someone looking at corporate development, compliance, investor relations, company secretarial role, legal, etc. These have become very, very critical for us. And of course, other roles that are helping us to grow, like chief of staff role,
Yeah.
head of revenue role, marketing roles.
Yeah.
So we've
Yeah.
become a lot more structured. If I'm to talk about hiring, we have
Yeah.
become a lot more
Yeah.
structured, a lot more planned, and we know exactly when do we need to pump in these capabilities during the year, when to pause, when to accelerate, and so on and so forth. We have become a lot more structured.
Yeah.
We will become a lot more structured even in compensation benchmarking. We always been like that as an organization. We've never hired mindlessly or fired mindlessly. We have been very frugal, nimble, and humble. As my our CEO says, we've been very
Yeah.
frugal, humble, and nimble in our approach, and that continues. That's the DNA of the organization. We don't take reckless decisions. We don't want to end
Yeah.
up in a situation where you have to ask people to go. That's been the DNA, and we continue to operate that way. So we've never, gotten talent by throwing a lot of money. We have always balanced, competitiveness and also, costs. We've been conscious, and now, you have to balance market competitiveness and shareholder expectations, your investor expectations. So we've been able to create that balance. And, also employees see long-term growth. So there is a lot of focus on retention and publicly listed company. It has helped us in hiring and being more structured in hiring and benchmarking compensation, and
Yeah.
also in very retention focused engagement.
Got it. Yeah. I can understand. I feel like already the kind of hiring and the kind of strategies that you had in place were sort of a people employee first, mindset. But with the structure being introduced, with the IPO and, with the compliance and everything, I think it's made it like 10x better as well. And of course, I'd say, attracting people is sort of one part of a challenge. Retaining talent post IPO is obviously a whole other story. Actually, you were recently talking about how, one of the challenges that you faced post IPO was the fact that people become very fixated on, you know, stock options, stock prices, market prices, and employees suddenly start reacting to obviously market movement. It's no longer just about job satisfaction, it's also about stock price satisfaction. So, what do you think are some of the best ways, you know, to keep employees engaged in a and committed in a post IPO world where they're maybe more focused on shares and stock performances, etc.?
So one of the things that has helped us is having, growth plans charted out for employees, especially for the ones that are creating a lot of value. So employees definitely want to look, into the future. They want to see how the organization is going to evolve and how their role and their contribution and their, growth path is going to, evolve, right?
Yeah.
That is one of the ways in which you that helps in retaining talent. The other way is, of course, your ESOP grants. We've been able to cover a lot of people, so employees are invested for the long term, especially the senior folks and even others. We have covered the entire workforce impact when we rolled out the ESOP plans. At the beginning of our IPO phase, right? And third and most important thing is culture and recognition. So if you drive a culture that reinforces the impact of, and the contributions, and if these things matter more than just financial rewards, I think you are in good stead.
Yeah.
You're able to recognize their contributions and you're able to give them a clear growth path. And of course, the long-term ESOP grants, I think these are some of the things that helps you retain talent and engage them post-IPO. Our portfolio is very diverse, a very diverse portfolio, and the opportunity to work with other teams. If you're a product person, you work very closely with the solutioning team, with the tech team, with the sales team, and you put a solution together for a corporate customer, and that makes everyone's roles also very, very interesting. They get exposure to the banking ecosystem, they get exposure to the the software side of things, they get exposure to the payment infrastructure. So the position is, our positioning in the market, in the whole scheme, in the entire scheme of things is very, very interesting. We are a B2B SaaS fintech company. We work very closely with a lot of banks. So the exposure that an employee gets into different kinds of use cases, and the opportunity to co-create solutions with, say, a partner outside of Zaggle, or a bank or a non-bank, and take that entire solution live with a customer, with a corporate customer, makes it very, very interesting as a proposition for employees. They feel engaged, they feel committed, they find it very interesting. So we are in a great space.
I think that's true testament to the fact that, even if your company does go through an IPO, we still, as HRs, every day have to think of more and more engagement and retention strategies in order to make sure that the employees stay committed and, stay engaged with the company as well. But yeah, I think definitely very, very interesting strategies that you've spoken about. Also, one of the most interesting things I feel about startup IPOs in recent years is that, like, many of them haven't performed as well, post listing. If you look at, companies even like Nykaa, Ola, Paytm, their stock prices have dropped very significantly from where they started from their IPO levels, some even by 50% or more. But Zaggle actually has been a very rare success story. You've seen a 163% increase since the IPO, which is very, very incredible. So first of all, a huge congratulations, to you and the team for achieving this sort of a feat. And second of all, this I also feel means that your employees, especially those with ESOPs, right, have likely seen real financial gains from this. And I imagine that must sort of create exciting culture internally where people may feel more invested and invested in the company's success in general too. But with the stock prices rising, have you also seen because of this an increase in exiting, like people cashing out and moving on? And also, like, are there any challenges with that come with being a high performing stock in a landscape where other startups are essentially struggling post IPO?
I don't know. I don't think I can link it to ESOPs or anything to do with high performing stock. Yes, there is some amount of attrition. It is natural, especially when you're a tech company. You're a tech company, or a fintech company, or a public company. There's a lot of quarterly pressure. There's a lot of focus on performance, and it's all transparent, and we track everything in a very, very transparent way, right? So you may see exits, although our attrition level is pretty much in control. I don't see
Yeah.
employees, cashing out in legal. That's not really
Yeah.
a key reason. Because
Hmm.
and the ones who are invested, they're invested for the long run. They don't, I don't
Of
think
course.
they are looking at one time, wealth creation and, exiting. I think they believe in the organization. They believe that this can really, really, really grow, multiple times.
Yeah.
And our future plans are very, very clearly laid out. Employees
Yeah.
know where, the organization is headed and the opportunity that they have to create long-term wealth. So I don't see this as a challenge in our organization at least.
Got it. Obviously, I think it has to do with the kind of culture and the spirit that the core values that you've instilled in your employees as well, that makes them realize that that's not an option over here. And, we're going to stay and want to stay for the long run with the company as well. Makes sense. I'm happy to hear that. I think you spoke about compliance initially quite a bit. I couldn't basically touch upon that. So after, since the IPO has happened, along with the culture and engagement part of things, obviously IPOs bring a major shift in governance and compliance as well. So how have sort of Zaggle's HR policies evolved now that you're, a publicly listed company?
Like I said, governance is strengthened. We have better compliance. We have structured rewards and incentive schemes. We have very clear communication of our, goals, our strategies, our numbers are clearly communicated. We have
Yeah.
we have retained speed, agility, and we continue to
Yes.
innovate because you got to innovate to stay relevant. You got to come up with creative thinking, creative mindset when it comes to solutioning for your customer. And every customer is unique and every customer is important, right? So we have been able to maintain that startup mindset in decision making.
Yeah.
And and these are some of the things that we've been able to retain. If
Got it.
yeah.
Understood. But I think that also probably comes with, a challenge wherein you have to sort of maintain transparency while ensuring stability, right? With so many compliance and, rules and regulations coming in for the employees as well, I think there's something new. So how do you sort of strike the balance between sharing critical business information and not overwhelming employees with financial like complexities and compliance, etc.?
So one of the things we've been doing quite frequently is the town halls, leadership meet. We meet the entire leadership team and leadership. I'm not just talking about the top leadership or the management team. The entire leadership team comprised of about 30 odd employees. We meet every week. Okay, so there's a lot of conversation around where we are, what are the key projects, where are we in terms of new deals, what kind of acquisitions are coming our way, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of transparency. There's also town halls that we hold frequently, where there are updates from the leadership team to the rest of the organization, right?
Got it.
We have simplified the entire communication. We help people understand the impact of our performance and their contribution on our stock price. We keep it very simple, very transparent, and the most important thing is the balance that you have to you have to balance the messaging. While we celebrate wins, we also have to be very realistic about the kind of challenges that we face in the market, the kind of fluctuations that we'll see in our stock price. We are realistic about it, and we do balance the messaging. We celebrate a lot of wins. We celebrate, but at the same time, we are also realistic.
That's actually an interesting way of looking at it. You mentioned something about how the entire leadership team every week gets together and gets on a call to discuss, in general things. So I wanted to understand what this is an interesting thing that I have not really heard of this before. The entire leadership team is getting together and collaborating on sort of, various projects that other teams are taking up. So could you tell me a little bit more about that?
This is, initially, even I felt like, do we have to do it every week? So there's a difference. So we do alternate weeks of discussions around projects, and projects could involve tech-related projects, product-related projects, partnership-related projects, HR-related projects, marketing-related projects, initiatives, whatever you might call it. And we update the entire group on where we are. Okay. And then these are like alternate weeks. And And so in a month there are 4 Fridays. One Friday is dedicated to business related updates and reviews, and the other Friday is
Okay.
dedicated to project related. So every alternate week we are talking about projects, and it actually helps a lot. Initially, I also felt, is it really important that we meet every week, every other Friday? But it has helped us immensely. It drives a lot of collaboration. That it drives a lot of ownership, because that you're answerable. You're answerable to the entire group. You're holding each other accountable. Okay, and there is a lot of
Exactly.
transparency. There's a lot of transparency. People know what the other person is
Yeah.
doing, and they can raise their hands and help the other person if there is a need, right? So everybody is aware of what's happening in the company in each function, and this
Yeah.
is a very, very interesting practice. I think I haven't also seen this in the past, honestly, but this is commendable. We've been able to put this together, and we are running this very, very well at Zaggle.
That's actually, yeah. And even like for HR leaders to probably collaborate and also like what's happening in marketing and product and in tech, just to have, discussions around all these interesting topics is also, I think, quite new. Very surprised to hear that. Okay. Yeah, I think in general, whatever was spoken about today does make me see and realize that you guys have built like a really, really good culture, a very strong culture over here. And but I wanted to, know a little bit more about your career as a whole in general. So, looking at your career as a whole, what are some of the say biggest HR leadership lessons that you've learned across industries? Like, you've been, working in this space for 18 plus years now. Are there any universal challenges that crop up regardless of sector, according to you?
Like I said, at the start of this call, I talked about how people shape businesses. This is one of the most important lessons that I've learned, right? People drive strategy. The best of ideas and the execution come from engaged employees. Okay, this is one of my biggest lessons, right? The
Yeah.
other is your culture is your asset. That is the only thing that will differentiate you from other companies. Okay,
Exactly.
everything else is something that can be copied. Okay, but
Yeah.
your culture is your unique value proposition, and that is an asset. And this is
Yeah.
something that I've been able to learn. The
Yeah.
third thing is, it is so important to be contextual. So I've worked in very different environments,
That's correct.
from a large
Yeah.
multinational company to a very different kind of environment when I moved from, say, Nielsen to Herbalife, then
Mm.
Reliance, every organization. And, initially everyone struggles, you struggle to find your feet, you struggle to figure out, and it's very tempting to give up. You feel like, oh, this is something that I never expected, but it's so
Exactly.
important to be contextual. You have to contextualize things. And once you contextualize, it's your adaptability, okay, that is going to help you in good stead. How well are you able to adapt to that culture? How well are you able to contextualize things? And whether it's an adaptability applies in every sense, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
a new environment, new organization, new business model, or it's transitioning
Right.
from a private startup to a publicly listed company,
So,
going through an
yeah.
transition of IPO, going through a transition of M&A, or even going through a market downturn, right? It is so important to be contextual and adaptable. That is like
Yeah.
the key things that I've learned. And
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, have fun in the entire process. That's so important. You enjoy what you're doing. Otherwise, everything will look like a burden. So
Yeah.
so learn to enjoy problems, learn to
Yeah.
face problems, and see how you can resolve some of those, and take a lot of help. Yeah, so that's I do take a lot of help from my peers, from my mentors, from my seniors, and these are some of the things. Never shy away from taking help. It's absolutely okay to be not knowing certain set of things. It is important to be curious. And yeah, and the other things that I said, people, it starts from people and ends there. So people shape businesses, they drive strategy, and culture is your asset.
Exactly. I think that they're all very, very powerful takeaways, and I do resonate deeply with all of them that you mentioned. Like people do, like starts and end with people. Definitely, context is very important. Being contextual is important, and also very, very happy to hear that, you are accepting that you still take help. There's a lot of things that you don't know. I think when leaders say these kinds of things, I think it makes employees in general more open to taking help and more open to seeking and reaching out for help when they really need it. So I think that's like very inspiring as well. I think, yeah, Lata, this has been very, very incredibly insightful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing the real behind the scenes challenges and the strategies that HR leaders face, post IPO. I'm sure and I'm hoping that's going to help a lot of, people who are actually preparing or, going on that journey as well. And yeah, very, very happy, very, very happy to have you on board with us. Thank you so much for joining us today. And, if you really enjoyed the episode, like for our listeners, don't forget to subscribe to the People Puzzle for more real candid conversations with top HR leaders. Until next time, thank you. Thank you so much, Lata. Thank you so much for coming on board.
So thank you so much, Dave, for helping me prepare for this mention, okay, and cheering me before the recording started. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. It was fun talking about IPO, and it was fun talking about my experience in Zaggle.